this is a pragmatic reset. Do what you need to do to benefit from the relationships.
It's a dramatic reset, I would say, because I know for a fact that even until about 3 to 4 months ago, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, he was very categorical, I know, when he'd meet people, about how let down he had felt by China and by Xi Jinping in particular. Because remember that you go back to a few years ago, and Prime Minister Modi was trying his best to sort of forge a very close relationship with Xi Jinping, with China. All these images were there where Xi Jinping came to India, and they were both, appeared to be sort of very close to each other and stuff. And then Modi felt very let down personally about what China did in terms of on the border dispute and stuff. So for him, it was very personal. And I think that this is the point I feel that a lot in the foreign policy domain, and I think we're learning to do that, but we still don't, that how personal some of these things can be. Which is that Prime Minister Modi felt extremely let down by China in terms of what he did until 3 to 4 months ago in his private conversations. I know with people, he was saying very categorically that I want nothing to do with China, and I feel very let down by what they have done. And that was reinforced by the Indo-Pak war which took place, like the border war which took place, the Operation Sindoor which took place, where the Pakistanis were supposed to have used extensively equipment supplied by China. So that was like the really low point of the relationship. And the Indian media, which tends to be very pro-Modi, they were all over in terms of China and dissing China and stuff like that. So this is a very dramatic reset that has happened. Just to put it, that this is not something which has been, this is like a complete pivot in terms of what Modi's been forced to do. Now, in terms of why Modi is doing this is also because of the fact of the way he's fallen out with Trump. As we were just chatting about during the break, that the two of them were extremely close, Modi and Trump, in the first term of Trump, and that ended that way. Now, what happened was last year, in September or so, and this is what I find that these personal stories we need to pay a bit more attention to, particularly given the character of these leaders that we have today, this cast of characters that we have today, is that Modi had gone to America in September last year, and he was scheduled to meet with both the candidates then, Kamala Harris and President Trump. At that point in time, it appeared that Kamala Harris was a bit ahead in the polls, in fact, there. And a meeting, I think, was scheduled for both of them in America when Modi was visiting just before the election. And from what I'm told by various sources is that for some reason, Kamala Harris had to cancel the meeting, and she cited some scheduling conflicts. But President Trump, then the candidate, he was all keen to meet with Modi, and he was all set to come to New York, I think, to meet with them. But for some reason, maybe to appear not to, be too close to Trump and to be meeting only one of the two candidates, that meeting got cancelled. And that, I'm told, sowed the seeds of, after that has happened, which is in terms of this parting of ways between Modi and Trump, at least at a very personal level, that's taken place. And then once again, Trump getting quite irritated that why is India, and led by Modi, disputing the fact that he was involved in the ceasefire that took place between India and Pakistan. Now, very different versions come out of India, but from a U.S. perspective, Trump, took it almost personally. I'm told that India keeps disputing the fact that I played a role in brokering this ceasefire, whatever he did. So it's at some level, these are personal stories. That in the first term, the two of them were bonding really well. It ended the relationship on a real high in 2020. And then in this term, it just got off to a bad start, given what happened in September last year, and then a progression of such misunderstandings that seem to have taken place. So these are very personal stories also being played out, not just analytical.
If it is about personal relationship, then
as well, yes.
Then it is also about trust. And Modi's been burned by both Trump as well as Xi Jinping.
Absolutely.
How then does he build a relationship now, even with China?
Well, I think that, he just now has to be sort of pragmatic, which is that if you look at India, its foreign policy currently, that a year ago, India was seen as almost the indispensable nation, that everybody in the world really wanted to back India because of the fact that it was seen as the main country which was which could stand up to China, and like that was the calculation of a lot of the Western diplomats and stuff, that that India was a sought-after nation, and how India was able to manage this very tricky situation where it was buying Russian oil and selling it elsewhere and getting away with it despite the sanctions that Russia had. And then I think that it's been a very sharp turnaround in terms of what India's foreign policy, what happened to it, where now today, I think, like in India, there's a growing self-awareness that we don't have too many allies and don't have too many friends who are standing up for us. So what India is trying to do now is to build it block by block, get back to sort of building relations, because really, like a few weeks ago, it appeared that none of the major powers were standing up for India, and India too had gone about on the offensive after feeling so high about being the indispensable nation, of lecturing Europe about how it should deal with its issues, and then they had the dispute with Canada, and then on the border they were facing a lot of hostility from countries like Bangladesh and stuff. So it was sort of seemed to be sort of falling apart very quickly. But now what India is trying to do is get more pragmatic and build it one block at a time.
The thing is, there's a third party in China-India relations, and that's Pakistan, as you suggested earlier, how Pakistan is using Chinese weaponry. We've had, the defense chief of Pakistan making repeated visits to Washington. How do you see India navigating that relationship?
Well, I think that as far as Pakistan is concerned, in terms of that, all of a sudden, that's been the big change too, because till like 6 months ago, Pakistan was largely considered to be irrelevant. No one really spoke about Pakistan much, but they've been able to get themselves back, given how they have sort of dealt with the conflict which took place. So they were able to get back. But here I do feel that the onus is on China, because remember that what China needs to figure out here is the fact that this is its opportunity. And China, remember, is also not a very trusted power in the region. But it clearly is the world's, the other superpower. You have America and then you have China. But China now needs to sort of figure out that how does it build more allies. And in terms of as far as Pakistan's concerned, the entire leverage is with China, because Pakistan in many ways is so much under the control of China. Because of what China supplies to Pakistan, or because of China's involvement in Pakistan. So here I think that it's really up to China, which is the fact that can China rise above this and sort of, say that, okay, for us, in terms of the fact that this is the time for us to build something with India. They seem to be under siege a bit, both from Pakistan and also from the bitter fallout with what's happened with America. So I think that it's for China to rise to the occasion here, and not just rise with India, but in the region, because as you know, whether it's the South Sea or it's got to do with Philippines and stuff, there are many countries in the region which also don't trust China. So this is China's moment at a time when many countries are being are feeling the so-called bullying, as China puts it, from America. It's for China to rise to the occasion. And I think that that's what we are seeing play out here.
And Ruchir, not forgetting that U.S. and China are still negotiating. They could strike a deal to the detriment of India.
Yeah.
India could be isolated. India could be the loser in this.
Yeah, but I'd say, as I said, that I think that, this is for China to rise to the occasion, right? Which is for China to sort of say, okay, like it's striking a deal there, but, we have to take care of the countries in the region as well. And I think that, like, the other thing that I've been noticing as I've been traveling through the region that I've been here is that a lot of countries, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Thailand, they're also facing the economic shock coming from China, which is there is so much surplus capacity in China that they've been exporting that surplus capacity, and it's leading to the partial deindustrialization of these countries where the manufacturing sector and all are getting hit. So I think that this is like as much, like about when you rise above this, about China being the responsible power. And I think that what they're doing with India here is the right step, which is to sort of acting responsibility, because if really China wanted to today, like if it was acting in its old ways, it could have, given the shrug to India that, okay, fine, like you sort of did what you did, and now as far as like you're coming back to us, why should we have to sort of reciprocate here? But I think that this is China's rising to it, but it needs to show a much broader thing, because until a few months ago, very few countries in the region even trusted China.